Today's speaker is Dr. Creighton Miller. Dr. Creighton Miller is the director of the Texas Potato and Legume Improvement Program. He has been at Texas A&M since 1975, and during his time here, he has developed or co-developed 19 different potato varieties. So he is going to be talking about potatoes breeding in Texas today.
Thanks very much. This is the first time I've participated. The reason is I've taught for more than 60 straight semesters, and my classes are at 11:30. So it was a kind of a conflict. The last time I didn't teach was when I was serving as interim department head for 3 years, when I hired David Byrne over there to go. That kind of tells you how long I've been around. My presentation today is mostly for the students to kind of get, it's a story of a plant breeding track and career, and point out some frustrations and some successes that we've had, and then hopefully we'll get started here. Real quickly, a little background on potato. Remember, it is an underground stem. It's a tuber. It is thought to have originated in Peru and Bolivia, but was brought to Spain by Spanish explorers and was introduced up through Europe. Many of you have heard of the potato famine of the 1840s in Ireland. That was due to a monoculture of one variety that was susceptible to late blight, a variety called lumper. And then it was introduced into the U.S. In what is thought to have been Londonderry, New Hampshire in about 1719. That was a picture of farmers in Peru even today at a meeting. There are about 1,500 species of solanum, about 107 of which are tuber bearing. Depends on whether you're a lumper or a splitter. Several cytological groups. 75% of the species are diploid. Most of these are self-incompatible and able to produce seed only when pollinated with a different S allele. The cultivated potato is Solanum tuberosum with 48 chromosomes. There's a wide amount of genetic variability in potato. We have a potato collection at Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, which has a board of about 12 people. I've served on that for 20 years. We meet annually and give direction to the explorer of where to collect and some of the issues that they run into. There are about 4,000 entries in the U.S. collection. We mentioned late blight, just you hear about that a lot, but it can destroy a field in 24 hours, and it's the cause of the, I think many of you know that the potato famine resulted in the death of over 1 million Irish people and the immigration of about that many to the U.S. I'm not sure of this fact, but we may not have had John Kennedy as the President of the United States were it not for the potato famine. So food, crops can have a great influence on, and that's what it looks like after 24 hours. There are a few different market classes. We talk about russets. That's what you saw in the video. Reds, chips are round whites. They generally have a higher specific gravity, and then now the trend is more towards specialty potatoes, smalls like this, and we have there's a company called Tasteful Selections that we're working with for identifying baby potatoes with a heavy tuber set, baby bakers in different shapes and colors, and you'll see more of that later. This is from Pike's Market out on the West Coast, and many of you visited that in Seattle, but we're seeing more and more of this kind of thing. The millennia are willing to pay more money for specialty potatoes like this, so this is an opportunity. If we look at the countries and the priority on potato production, this is in tons. China is far and away the largest producer of potatoes, followed by India and the Russian Federation, the United States, down around fourth. But China is growing, potato production there is increasing. If we look at value in the United States, there are 3 points I want to make here. There are 3 basic production periods of the year: spring, summer, and fall. Fall is by far this is harvest. Fall the largest, and that's more in the northern latitude states, and this is the crop that goes into storage. One of the reasons that the Texas industry came about to begin with is we could produce a potato in June, July, and August when the storage stocks had been depleted. And for that reason, Texas growers have received the highest or second highest price for their potatoes than growers in any other state. We go back and forth with California. It's worth about $4 billion annually, and enough said about that. The largest states are far and away Idaho and Washington, followed by Wisconsin. We aren't in the top 10. We come in about 11 in Texas. As far as utilization, about 34% is frozen fries. Fresh is about 26%. Chip is about 15%. Dehydrated 12%, and so on. So frozen French fries and fresh are the largest group that are consumed. Texas produces about 31,000 acres annually, with a summer crop of 21,000 acres. So it's a spring crop that's mostly started down in the lower Rio Grande Valley and moves out. Planting starts before Christmas down there. Over the past several years, Texas has produced the highest yields among the 9 states that produce the summer crop. And in 2014, we ranked 12th with a value of about $120 million in a farm gate with a general value of about $300 million. Generally rank first or second in price received. Texas average yields in 72 when we began the program. It was initiated were about 200 to 220, and now they're about 460, an increase of over 100%. We know that the magic in plant breeding classes across all crops, these yield gains are due about 50% to improved cultural practices and about 50% to improved genetics. But that depends on the crop. Some crops it's more, as you well know, but that's a good rule of thumb, about 50-50. Some of the national potato organizations, we have the U.S. Potato Board, which is involved in potato promotion, consumption, and that is an automatic checkoff system that supports that. Another national group that we depend heavily on is the National Potato Council, and they're our legislative arm, and they're located in Washington, and interact with them. And then the third I would mention is one that I'm past president of, the Potato Association of America, which is the Research and Extension Group, and we'll have our 100th meeting and annual meeting in Michigan here this summer. Where we publish, we try to encourage the potato researchers to put you like to get your publications in highly recognized journals, but most of us publish most of our work in one of these 2 journals, the American Journal of Potato Research and Potato Research, which is a European publication. Annual meetings, if any of you knew Charlie Witt, this is a picture of Charlie Witt now. We were doing some rain-out shelter work in Lubbock in 1972. I used this picture and another one to prove that I did have hair at one time. But anyway, we have the annual Potato Field Day. We have the NRSP6, that's the germplasm meeting, Wisconsin. The North Central Group, which meets in Chicago, is primarily chip-oriented for us. The Potato Association of America meeting, and of course the germplasm committee meeting as well. I didn't mean to flash by that. you're kind of wondering what this has to do with this presentation, but this happens to have had a big influence on my life. My father was an outstanding plant breeder and horticulturist at Louisiana State University. Just a couple of things, I can't spend too much time. He developed a couple of strawberry varieties that saved the Louisiana strawberry industry. They insisted that they buy my automobile, and thanks for that. He's the one who coined the word yam for potatoes to try and distinguish Louisiana sweet potatoes from other states. Louisiana yam, which he actually was able to get on the Louisiana license plate for a few years. So he was quite a promoter. And the horticulture building, agronomy building there, the older one was renamed Julian C. Miller Hall. This is my daughter and two of my grandchildren. But I used to go to the potato fields in South Dakota with him and help pick them up. So that had an influence. I'm a university brat. I enjoy working in a university environment, and that was a high priority when I graduated from Michigan State. My first job was, and the real job was at Lubbock. I was hired in 1972. There were two special items in the legislature, $100,000 for vegetable breeding research, i.e. potato breeding program, and $100,000 for brush control. They had interviewed three of us and identified me, and at the last moment in the legislature, the Bill Heatley, who was the head of the House, transferred these two funds from the Agriculture Experiment Station project program to Texas Tech. So they had a dilemma. We've interviewed, we've offered the position, what are we going to do? We're not getting the money, and they decided to bite the bullet. But that's had some real ramifications on my career for the whole time. So, no greenhouse to start a position. No cold storage, that's how you have to store potatoes. No field or wet lab, no planter, no digger, no tractor, no pickup, no germ plastic, no technician, no private office, shared office, no nothing. At 5 minutes after 8 on my first day on the job, I got a call from a grower, watermelon grower in Crosbyton. I planted my watermelon seed yesterday, and the ground squirrel are eating them. What do I do? And I told them to get a baseball bat and go beat the hell out of them. It's not the kind of thing you call it. But, you know, with what I just told you, and then the development of a new potato variety usually requires 14 to 18 years from hybridization to release. I was screwed. You go to the growers and say, I'm a new potato breeder, I'm going to give you some new varieties, will you support my program? So it's been a haul all the way. After 2 years, I told the resident director I was leaving, and he went to the filling station, came back with $6,000, and I spent the summer with the farm crew building these two greenhouses at Lubbock. So we got to start. And that's the greenhouse now that we use to make our crosses in Lubbock, and we now have a field lab and cold storage, which we're going to extend here in the next year. My startup was $4,000. I want to tell you, my starting pay was $14,400, and that was very competitive at the time, and that'll be significant here in a minute. But the startup was $4,000. I bought a compressor for the cold storage, and 10 years later, when I was interim head, we got the cold storage. So it's been a long haul getting set up. So in the beginning, we initiated in '72. With one of the staff conferences, I went to see the department head. We were part of Soil and Crop, and I was going to plead for a technician, and I sat down with him in his office, and he said, Creighton, how would you like to move to College Station? And I'd always wanted to be on a campus, and so that was an attractive offer. By that time, I mentioned $14,400. In 3 years, my salary had gone to $20,000, That's the biggest jump I've ever had. And what they said, we'll take half of your salary and you can use that to hire a technician at Lubbock. So I always say I had to move to College Station to get a technician at Lubbock. So it's been good to have free exchange of germplasm with other states, and you'll see that the potato program is focused on yield, mostly with russets, and not just a researcher. I think its definition of an entrepreneur, we could put a plant breeder in there. A person who organizes, manages an enterprise, especially a business, which it turns out to be, usually a considerable initiative and risk. We could say that's also a definition of the plant breeder. Our early years of funding, when we came back, were on nitrogen fixation and cowpea, and I didn't know much about nitrogen fixation, but I thought, well, if there's difference in rhizobial strains, there must be differences in host plants in their ability to fix nitrogen. And we received about 4 or 5 grants over the early years, and most of my early graduate students worked on nitrogen fixation while we were getting the potato breeding going and up and running. And we had a number of papers from the nitrogen fixation work. So some of the objectives, and I won't go into great detail here, but to develop improved russet varieties, red skin varieties, and yellow flash with outstanding culinary quality, improved chip varieties have become an emphasis more lately, and improved strains of existing varieties, and I'll focus on that a little bit in a minute. And we spent some time on health benefits of potatoes. This fellow is a guy named Bob Johansson, who was a potato breeder at North Dakota State and did his PhD with my father at LSU. And he was the most productive potato breeder of his time. He was very helpful. This is early on a trip I made to North Dakota, and sharing germplasm with me and helping me get going. Networking is key in everything. I wanted to mention a little bit about, we didn't have any national funding, and there was some money being distributed, what we call port money from some states, and North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, especially Oregon, Idaho, and Washington, were getting pork money, and they were afraid that this is money that senators just designate, for those of you who are not familiar, to a specific cause. And so they decided we already had the Northeast group, the Midwest group, and the Tri-State group. But then they said, okay, we're going to make this competitive money. And we said, here's our chance, California, Texas, and Colorado. So we submitted a proposal, and our proposal was ranked #1, and we got in on this new special grants program for potato breeding research. And it's been good. It's not a lot of money, $50,000 maybe, but it was a base to help support our program. And I'm going through this fast, but we have a number of cooperators. I'm not going to, and this just gives you that, but this really gives you the picture. We literally do cooperate one way or another with all of the people that you have. There are about 12 potato breeding programs, public programs in the U.S. We think potato programs belong with the universities because there are not a lot of private companies. Some crops can be covered by the private companies. There is one, Frito-Lay has a breeding program, but there are about a dozen in the U.S. Testing of promising, we did a lot of variety testing at first, and we still do a lot of variety, and we covered the whole state. Doug and I travel a lot. Doug drives and I read, and Valhart is 12 hours away. Spring Lake is 9 hours away. So this past year you were at about 80 hours, 80 days, and 90 days, and I've spent about that much earlier. I'm trying to cut back. For those of you who don't know, I retired in 97, so I'm half-time now. My department head says I'm the best deal he's got in the whole department. This is just a cutting for trials. In the U.S., we cut seed, and we like to get 1.5 to 2 ounce seed pieces. They obviously need to have iron. In Europe, they use single drop small potatoes, but in the U.S., we cut seed. It is a possible way to spread virus, so we have to be careful. And then we line the trials up in our field lab in Lubbock, and they go out to the field. Remember, so the seed is actually vegetatively propagated. There is botanical seed. We'll talk more about that in a minute. True potato seed. This is just planting a trial in the spring. You can notice it's kind of cold. It's just a assist plant planter. Here is planting in Dalhart trials. These are 2 rows on a bed, and I'll talk a little more about that in a minute. And this is our trial at the Spring Lake this year. And Dalhart, we work with a company called, all of our work is off station, except for a little bit of work at Weslaco. We have a circle here that CSS Farms. It's a 45-acre circle. They designate strictly for our research, and we rotate 15 acres every year. This is about 10 acres here in our trials. We have 15 different trials here, plus first-year seedlings are grown here. This is this year. We either beat the vines such as this. A lot of growers use sulfuric acid to kill the vines to set skin. That's very important that the tubers don't skin when they're harvested. This is digging at Spring Lake, and digging it, harvest again at Spring Lake, and then harvest at Dalhart. This is harvest Spring Lake. We use the crew from the packing line in the morning to help us get things up. This is digging at Dalhart. We have a good relationship with the prison there, and they let us use several prisoners to help us harvest and grade. Doug calls them his boys, but we love them. It takes a lot of work, and we have a good relationship with them. This is just, you saw the commercial harvest when you came in. Grading, we used to have a sizer. We no longer do that. We do it simply by hand. That's when we look at them and look at different traits and skin type, et cetera, et cetera. This is Jeff Coyne in the middle, who's our guy in Lubbock. I'll mention that Doug's position was eliminated a few years back in the cut. Doug is totally on soft money. Jeff is, we're picking him up at about 40% soft money. And I'm half-time. The director's making money off of our position. So we throw them out on the table here and grade them, such as what you see here. There's Doug bringing some into our field storage at Lubbock. We're again grading. And notes on yellow flash, the intensity of the yellow flash or purple flash, et cetera, et cetera. Some of the reports that we prepare, the breeding report, which is about 50 pages or more, and then the Western Regional Report, the Southwestern Regional Report. So we do write a bunch of reports. This is field day, and we've had that at Spring Lake for more than 25 years now. We have people from Canada and Mexico, seed growers, commercial growers, et cetera. I went by that a little fast. We do a field day book that we hand out, and of course we have our website on the right there. This is early in Lubbock, showing that I did have hair. But the original selections, this is about the methodology from seedling tuber resulting from cross made in Texas, and second size and third size seedling tubers from other states, and I'll go into that specifically in a second. These are just chimeras. This one on the upper left, we're thinking of releasing as a variety, calling it Horticultural. It's kind of a unique red with yellow flesh, red splash, but you never know what'll be popular. Some of the problems in true seed production are just failure to flower and nicking problems, which we have in many crops. Dropping of buds and flowers either before or after fertilization. Low pollen production and self-compatibility. It takes about 60 days from planting to bloom. Pollination of flowers on the plant in the field is not done. It's mostly done in the greenhouse. And potatoes are a long day crop. Greenhouse should have at least 16 hours of sunlight and about 65-degree temperature. This is just a picture of our greenhouse in Lubbock. And we're collecting pollen here and putting it in vials, and we dry it, maybe put it under a lamp to help dry it. You can use pollen for quite some time if you harvest it and kept it properly. We grind it and then put it in these vials and then use the stopper, bottom of the stopper of the cork to transfer the pollen to the stigmatic surface. We went through that a little fast. Remember each of the seed, let me go back. This is what the seed looks like. It's like tomato seed. They're up to maybe 300, there may be none. Remember, each one of these is a potential new variety. So these seed are planted out by a family. We sow them in vermiculite, and then they hopefully come up. There is dormancy of about at least 6 months, so you can't go straight from seed harvest planting. And then allow them to get up to about 1.5 inches, and individually transplant each one of those to 36 cell plants. Remember, each one of these cells is the potential for a new variety. And here's an example of a red family segregated in upper middle, and a white on the right, and a white times russet cross on the left, and different families that we'll be planting. We talked about sending second and third size seedling tubers from the different programs. Remember, each plant is a potential for a new variety, but all 4 of these tubers are the same variety. So instead of us planting all 4 of those, we'll keep the largest one, send the second size to North Dakota maybe, the third size to Colorado, the 4th size to Oregon. And that way we can increase the number of seedlings that we grow for original selection. So there's a real open exchange of germplasm. Once we send that material out, we say that it's yours to do with as you. It's sure nice if you're acknowledged if a variety comes out of it, but it's theirs. This is planting. You'll notice we have the stakes up every 100 feet. We map the field when we plant the seedling tubers. This is harvested, the seedling tubers. This is an interesting shot here. I was in Canada at a meeting, and I stepped off a curb and broke a bone in my foot. And Doug, as ingenious as Doug is, he says, well, why don't we just use the 5-wheeler? And walking these seedlings, one year I walked up to 20 miles, I think it was, to get through all the seeds, back where we planted them at 3 feet apart. And so I've started selecting from the 5-wheeler, and you'll see that I've got the pickup device here. I hand it back to Doug. We've mapped the field, and Doug maps where it is so we can keep track of what family that particular selection came out of. So we try and grow about 100,000 seedlings every year. And then we do some reselecting before we plant. Now, telling you a little about our clonal selection program, this is kind of interesting. When I first went to Lubbock, I did a lot of variety trials, as I mentioned, including potato variety trials. And there were some seed growers in Nebraska that had these strains of this variety, Norgold russet, that was developed by Bob Johansson, I showed you in the picture before. And they claimed that their strains of the Norgold russet were higher yielding than the regular Norgold russet, which has a weak vine and is subject to hail damage and hot desiccating wind. I thought it was a bunch of BS, but lo and behold, through the years I started seeing the average yield for the standard Norgold russet strain was 226, and M strain was 311. So the short story here is that the M strain of Norgold russet became the standard. Well, this is Norgold russet, and these were its strengths: attractive, uniform, shallow eyes, and high percentage of number ones. So what happened was Bob Johansson introduced a new variety called Russet Dakota, and I realized if our growers were going to survive in the industry, that somebody had to select some strains out of it, possibly with higher yield. And the seed growers weren't going to do it, so I did it. So this was a pull-through variety. The industry accepted it, and we better learn how to grow it. It had a weak vine too, and that was a problem with it. So there's a phenomenon among potatoes called giant hill or bull plants. So I went to Colorado and I made just short of 200 bull plant selections out of this field of cooperator that we worked with. And then in Texas, we made about 200 bull plant selections. This is an example of one. So we were selecting strictly for vine type that first year. And then at Spring Lake, the next year, there were 192 from Colorado, 183 from Texas, 375. I planted them in the field, and you see them here early in the season and here later. And I went in and made sure they weren't variety mixes and began selecting for tuber type, not for vine string. Because a lot of these bull plants have very ugly, misshapen tubers. So out of that group, we selected 4. And you can see them displayed here. And there was a lot of pull-through for them, and these 4 varieties never went through the A&M system. And we did PVP them, and this is an example. We had a trial one year in Arizona on the top of a mesa, and he was a brand new cooperator, and he forgot to put the nitrogen fertilizer down. And you can see standard russet Dakota here in the middle, and then the strains on the side, and you can see that they're a lot more vigorous. So there was dramatic difference in our selection. And we ran trials both in Hooper, Colorado and Spring Lake, and we found that the strain averages of these 4 strains was 342 with 84% increase. In Spring Lake, it was a 78. These are 100-weight CWT increase, so about a 30% increase, which is significant. There are unintended consequences of these higher yields. We published a little paper on the whole process. And the bottom line is there are about 35 seed growers that have licenses to produce these 4. And we brought in excess of $4 million in royalties from these 4. So our clonal selection program, these growers are all over the U.S. And we've been very successful in the clonal selection program for russet Dakota. The way the commercial seed production goes, it's called the limited generation program. We start with mini tubers, I'll show you that in a minute, and then we produce G1 seed. G1 is the first generation in the field. G2 to G3, and then G4 to G6 is sold as for commercial seed production. And then you're required to start all over again with mini tubers. The requirements for certification are more stringent for the lower generation. You can have more virus as the generations increase. So that's kind of the way the limited generation program works. In the U.S., there are certification programs in these states. Texas does not have a certification program. So I'll say that Technology Licensing Center is very good at writing licenses and pretty good at collecting, but they're not good at going out and getting business because they don't know people. So almost every one of the people that we got licenses for, I did myself, back to the entrepreneur definition, and our group got an award from the Technology Commercialization Center, the Entrepreneur Award. So I think as a plant breeder, you better have some of that in you. I'm going to pass over this because we're running late. This is another one that we're looking at. We're thinking of calling it peppermint. It's a white skin mutation of red Lesotho. And this is a variety that was developed by my dad about 70 years ago, and it's still around, red Lesotho. The peach variety harvester that's grown throughout the South was one of his varieties too. Advantages of clonal selection: the genotype is fixed in the F1, so when you make that first selection in the field, you don't have to go F2, F3, F4, F5, F6. So that's an advantage, but a disadvantage is it's susceptible to viruses, which is expressed in your daughter tubers. So we spend a lot of time on tissue culture and virus cleanup. The other breeding programs around the country who have seed certification programs, they just take it into their certification program and they clean it up for the breeding program. We have to do that ourselves. And of course, I won't spend a lot of time on this, but cryotherapy is used in chemotherapy and ribavirin, and that's a whole seminar in itself. The idea here is if you selected this tuber one year, you'd be lucky to get 4 plants out of it in the bottom. With tissue culture, if you play it right, you can produce this many mini tubers to plant the next year. So that's where we get the term rapid multiplication. This is our germplasm storage in the Hort building. Just real quick, we've done a fair amount of work with health benefits. Remember, potato is the third most important human food crop worldwide. So it's a great delivery system for any kind of health benefiting compound. The total yearly per capita consumption in the U.S. is 111 pounds, and we kind of alluded to this earlier, 64 pounds fresh, 77 processed. A lot of vitamins and minerals, so there's some opportunities for delivering antioxidants and other health promoters. One of the things we work with mice is prostate cancer. We're not saying you eat a potato today and your prostate cancer goes away or you never get it, but potato consumption seems like it could be healthy. The compounds that we've worked with and identified are gallic acid and checonine are two of the major ones. We've published a number of publications in Carcinogenesis and other publications. That's a whole seminar. More recent area that we worked on is this, some of you have heard of zebra tipped in potato, and it's a mess that here I am with Jack Wallace down in the Rio Grande Valley when we were trying to figure out what the heck this new disease was. And it was first found in Mexico in '94 and in the United States in 2000. We noticed that it was more prevalent along the wheel tracks of the center pivot systems. That's a little bugger. It's a real problem because we've got two things involved here. We've got an insect and we've got a bacteria that the insect leaves when it falls. One thing we tried was clonal selection. But some of these vines are kind of green and we hadn't had any luck with that. This is what, sometimes it's expressed this way in the fresh potato on the left compared to the chip from the same tuber on the right. And then here we did a little quick and dirty just to see with several different varieties the effect of cooking. And we see the fresh across the top and the chip second down. And then bake, the color doesn't seem to be that bad, but microwave and then boil. So the real problem is with the Maillard reaction with the chip. So one other thing that we have noticed, when the psyllid moves in, you pretty much got the crop that you're going to get at that time, because there's an effect on yield when they move in that's unrelated to chip. We did our early screening in the field when that was a real problem, and a lot of it in the field. We're now doing most of it in cages, and you can see when I can't go in, don't have time, but removing the cages, there's some varieties or phenotypes that are better than others on the right that have survived. These were treated. We couldn't do anything without our industry cooperators, as I mentioned. A Spring Lake potato probably provides about $35,000 or $40,000 in in-kind support for us. Just mentioning here with Spring Lake, fresh potatoes are generally sold in these 50-pound cartons, and depending on the size of the tuber, they'll say 50 count, 60 count, 40 count. 40 count are obviously bigger potatoes. Sometimes in totes. This is a red Lesotho variety. CSS Farms is an outfit that actually Doug's son works for now. They have farms in 7 states. They're the second largest supplier of raw product for chips nationwide. And they can store over 1 million hundredweight there in Dalhart. So Dalhart is their sweet spot for production. This is Lucy, is a graduate of our department, did her PhD, and she is their quality control person. Usually this whole wall is full of chips. Each sample that goes out of on a truck has been chipped at point of origin before it's sent. This is a new phenomenon. Larson, they're a company out of Idaho that just bought about 40,000 acres in the panhandle near Dalhart. This is not a tractor implement sales shot. It's a shot of their tractors. They are big. This is their farm, and I'm not sure they would be real pleased if they knew that we took a shot of this picture. But they have a total of 257 circles, and they say that about 8,500 of those are in our North Dakota strains. This is inside their packing facility. It's brand new, state-of-the-art. They are wonderful marketers. They're prevailing upon the Texas pride. And you'll see this in HEB, Lone Star Russets. And then they talk about the XIT Ranch. Most of you, well, many of you may know. When we built the Capitol here in Texas, we didn't have the money. And so there were financiers out of Chicago, I believe it was, that financed the building of our state capitol. In exchange, we gave them 3 million acres, most of which has been sold off now. But there still exists the XIT Ranch, and that's where they bought the land. So they're prevailing upon Lone Star potato russets that grown on the XIT ranch prevailing from the pride of Texans. Some new releases. This is Sierra Gold is the russet. It's the first yellowfish russet released in the U.S. Sierra Rose is a red-skinned yellowfish, fresh market potato. This is our newest release, Reveille russet. We just got PVP approval on that. It's a fresh market russet. This is Reveille down on the bottom, just a hill of Reveille, and above that is russet Burbank, the most popular variety grown in the United States. So you can see russet Burbank does not do well for us. Varieties for the future, I do want to mention that our strains, the #1 ranked potato variety approved for certification is russet Burbank. #2 is one called Ranger russet. The Frito-Lay varieties collectively from the private Frito-Lay program. Then Ranger russet, then a red, and then collectively our strains ranked 5th in the United States in total acres produced in certified seed. So we have a lot of new things coming along. We need to be open to new things, improved flavor, health benefits we talked about. You know, we all know the problem with a lot of the GMOs, what's been done early on with all things which help the farmer improve herbicide top resistance, et cetera, et cetera. But until we sell consumers that with the GMO improvements are to their benefit, healthy. Something environmentally friendly, sustainability, and the small fingerlings, baby bakers, and the chimeras that we mentioned. We need to keep an open mind for new things. So impact statements that 14 improved varieties have been developed and are released. Virtually all of the russet potatoes grown in Texas are 15, which is an improved russet North strain. The average summer crop yields in Texas are highest in the nation for the summer crop states. And the farm value, maybe not very big compared to some of your agronomic crops. I will mention real quickly that we did, but when we, in our cowpea mode, released a couple of varieties, Texas Pink Eye Purple Hull, and another one.
Golden Eye Cream?
Yes, Golden Eye Cream, which has been reported by one of our students working at the farm in South Africa, and I'm quoting him, to be the world's highest yielding cowpea. So I like hearing that. But we're focused 99% now on potato because that's what it's funding with. And you can't do anything by yourself. Doug has been a wonderful colleague and friend on the left. He's been with me for almost 40 years. I remember when the hippie Doug rode in on his motorcycle from Arizona. His brother, John Shearing, did a PhD here at Soil Pop and worked under Fred Miller, one of your best students. And that's how Doug got here. And Doug has been with me through a master's degree, Doug. And Jeff Coyne on the right has been with me. We've got to have someone on the ground in Lubbock. There's no way Doug and I can run up to Dalhart this afternoon and check the plots. It's still a 3-hour drive for Jeff to go from Lubbock to Dalhart. So Jeff started with decab. That's what they used to call it, the decab. But he worked with them for a while and has a master's degree. So we have we're an excellent team. We all have our strengths in different areas. And it's kind of near the end for me too. We supposedly are getting permission to fill my position, and what I've been told, they want some overlap for up to 3 years. I don't know whether I'm good for that, but I think we're going to be able to continue it's been a long haul. Try and get hired in a position for an existing breeding program. Don't get one that you have to start from scratch. The A&M system's a little different, but generally in the public arena, they expect you to get the money to run your program. In the private arena, if they make a decision to breed a crop, they're going to put the funds behind it that are necessary to do it. So I think I told you about what I had to do to get a technician, but it's been fun and frustrating, and good people to work with, and plant breeding is wonderful. We're going to see tons of changes I haven't shown you. The big changes going on in the potato world right now, and all the breeding programs, and I hadn't showed you a lot of science, but the actual breeding is really fun. It is a kick in the rear end to drive down a highway and look both ways and see your variety on both sides of the road. And we got several people in here that have experienced that. So stay with it. There's a good future. Thank you for having me.
We have time for a couple questions, so ask away.
Fred.
With the new trend toward flavor, how would you standardize, let's just say, a peppermint flavored potato? Is it environmentally specific? How do you ensure that peppermint flavor is going to stick there?
The peppermint is strictly to describe the color.
No, I'm talking about the flavor.
But
A flavor, or let's just say lemon flavor,
Yeah.
or some flavor trait.
Well,
that
you got to identify the compound responsible for that trait and screen your varieties and segregants for that. You can do that. But there are people that are specializing in potato flavor and texture. And we know, boy, as a plant breeding story, the apple story is the most famous. Red Delicious. Oh man, I've got a red Delicious. Man, this one's redder even yet. And all of a sudden they realized they forgot about taste and texture. And that's why, that's my model. We had the World Potato Congress that I was invited to speak at. And what I flashed up there was the apple model. Look at all the different varieties of apples that you see down the road. And that's what we're going to need to go through. But you can't just focus on one trait and forget about, there's some wonderful apple varieties out now. They don't look necessarily that pretty, but they taste and texture is wonderful. So yield and everything, we need to keep our eye on the ball on everything.
I would also add on that too, Creighton, is that test your variety, eat it early.
Yeah.
So we've had some stuff where we grew half a field and it was like, you tasted it, it's terrible. And we had a cowpea like that.
Yeah. And another thing, it's nice if you have some potato colleagues in your state to work with. My network is out of state, and with the zebra chip has brought money to the state, and you know what money does, it attracts people. That's fine. You know, well, I'm a pathologist, I'd love to work with you, but do you have some money you can give me to help work with? So being a single shot person is no fun. But one time when that zebra chip money came in, we had 13 PhD level people working on zebra chip. And I just said, hallelujah, you know, look at all these people working on potato.
Any attempt to increase protein content in potatoes?
Yeah, that's just not, I'm not sure whose radar that's on right now. The 20, 30, 40 years ago, that was a push. But potato is the third most important food crop according to FAO.
What's the percentage of protein anyway in potatoes?
I think 8%, something like that. When I was at Michigan State, we had a student that was in agronomy that was working on potato, and he went for a whole year on nothing but potato and milk, and because the proteins complement each other from those. And then there was a guy who's out in Idaho, who's the head of their commercial group that went on potato only for 6 months. So you can survive okay. The Irish people did.
Long-term storage of germplasm, is it vegetative or seed?
It's all of it, and tissue culture and true seed primarily.
Great. How did you get, you did clonal selection and you increased yield 50% or so?
30.
30. Where's that variation coming from?
I wish I knew. We've tried to work on that with the tools we got. Julian may have an answer.
I don't know. We did transcriptome analysis, and we see a lot of genes on drought tolerance. So is that the explanation for the yield?
You know what happened on that? The demand for these strains just got out of hand, and we had to have them protected. And Gilstrap let me submit the PVP before I went to the committee. And you remember Gilstrap? And he was on my butt to write those up, and I never did. But it's kind of ironical. It's kind of ironical that our very most successful things went that way.
Any collaboration with SIP?
I have had very limited work with international. I've just, in the early days, I was kind of enamored with international travel, and right now I've got my hands full.
Well, what about
Yeah, that's been a bit of an issue. Carlos Ochoa was their collector down there. He's a proud Incan, and the whole issue of the north-south, and we had to shut down collection totally down there for a while, so it's been a bit of an issue. But we can get most of what we need from Sturgeon Bay. In fact, we're in touch with them yesterday.
All right, we are actually out of time today, so
Thank you.
Thank you again. I think you will be available for questions. If you have to go to class, you can go to class. I don't know anybody.